I just kind of wanted to orange pill everyone in there and go, whatever you're about to bet, put it in Bitcoin instead. Like, still, I know you've only got 10 quid to your name, but horse number 4 is not going to do it. But it probably wouldn't have really worked as I walked out with like a wad of cash.
Did you walk in like in a trench coat, coming in saying, "I've got these orange pills, boys"? Yeah. Who would have thought it? We are here, the 4Bs, and a special one as it's pod number 50. As always, your usual hosts, Mr. All-In, aka the $1 trillion man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, also known as the Excellence of Execution, and she's here, but she's never here, Mrs. No Show, aka Mrs. No Show.
Can't we just save a Starbucks drinking motherfucker?
Bucky's, yeah, that's right. But we're here after Bitcoin 2022, back for another one.
We are indeed. We are indeed. I had a bit of a mixed week this week for myself. I got banned from Reddit for saying that someone had a pretty mouth.
What brought this on?
I think I was discussing something COVID related, probably. I think they were COVID, Karen. Pretty sure.
Well, that's still a thing. It's not just Ukraine now and global warming.
No, somehow I got into that, yeah. And I blame you for that because that phrase, I heard that first from you. So I found it clearly works extremely well because
it's a good retort. It confuses people.
Yeah. And he gets past all the filters, right? I literally look at it. It's like, I'm just saying he's got a pretty mouth. I couldn't see the guy, but he was clearly like homophobic, knew that we were both guys. I said he's got a pretty mouth, and he just reported me for harassment and banned from Reddit. But to counteract that, we had the Grand National on Sunday, won that one. Noble Yeats, £10 each way, £66, 66 to 1.
And that's big city.
There you have it.
The $1 trillion man.
Yeah.
Living up to his name.
So you got some trash cash back that you shared.
I have, yeah. And you know what? It actually did. The first thing that like my missus said to me when we went and picked up the cash, it was the first time she'd ever bet in a betting shop and all that. It's really tragic when you walk into these betting shops. And the only reason I ever went into one was because she'd never been in one, never put a real bet on. Normally I just do this online, right? And
yeah,
I never bet on the Grand National usually because I just know it's a mug's game. It's just a lottery. But I was going down there with her. She wanted to put a bet on, so I went, sod it, bet on Noble Yeats. Literally, I had the meme in my head where there's like some woman yeeting a baby over a fence and it says yeet on it. And I saw Noble Yeats and went, that's my horse. That's my boy. And but yeah, like it's so tragic. Like, obviously the people are. It's really tragic, you know. You can tell they're alcoholics, they're desperate, they've got no money, and they're trying to. The betting shop is their way out. I just kind of wanted to orange pill everyone in there and go, whatever you're about to bet, put it in Bitcoin instead. Like, still, I know you've only got 10 quid to your name, but horse number 4 is not going to do it. But it probably wouldn't have really worked as I walked out with like a wad of cash.
Did you walk in like in a trench coat, coming in saying, "I've got these orange pills, boys"?
It'd be a golden trench coat, wouldn't it?
Yeah, golden trench coat.
Yeah, but it was weird actually because the second I won the money, it was like, "Oh, you're going to put that into the bank and convert it into Sats." And my immediate reaction was, "Of course, that's what I'm going to do." But then I realized this trash cash is more valuable than normal trash cash. This trash cash doesn't have any KYC on it. The government don't know I own it. I went into a bookies, gave them £20. They gave me a betting slip. I went back in an hour later. They gave me £800. If I put this into my bank account, I already know what the taxman's going to say. Where's my 50%, motherfucker?
Yeah.
Did you earn this? Where did it come from? But I'm going to get a million questions. I'm like, you know what? I actually don't mind a little bit of trash cash in a safe somewhere, just in case, along with my Bitcoin. Because you know what? If I'm escaping the country, my net worth is in Bitcoin. But you know what? I might need £800 to grease some hands on the way out. I've now got that thanks to the Grand National. So I'm going to keep my £800 of trash cash. That is my taxi fund to get to the border, to pay the boat driver to get me across the channel or something. So it's weird, actually. I actually realized
over to your yacht.
Trash cash has a value if it has no KYC on it. I liked it.
I like your thinking. Yeah, absolutely.
Because literally, I didn't want the tax man, because I know I'm going to get audited. I know that day is coming, and they're going to go, where did this £800 cash payment that you paid into your bank account come from? They're going to assume that's work, or I'm going to have to hold on to my bet receipt, which I don't have anymore because I gave it to the fucking bookies. So I'm like, I have no evidence. Like, I have no paper trail for where this money came from. So I was actually put off putting it into the bank, because I'm like, this is going to raise more questions that I can't really answer. I'd rather not answer the questions. So I'm going to keep this in my safe, and I'll probably put some into day-to-day spends, but the rest I'll leave as emergency funds in case the world goes to shit.
So what whiskey did you buy?
I got some good old Cardu. It was on offer in Tesco, 33% off.
What's Cardu? Don't think I've heard that one.
A nice single malt from I think it's Scottish. I'm not sure. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah,
beautiful.
Well, someone's had a good week.
Yeah. How are you? How was your week, boys?
God, uneventful, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've just been on daddy daycare.
I'd say it was good in a way, because while I've been working, I've had Bitcoin 2020 on, just to listen to. So I've been listening to a few of the episodes, because I think last year it was possibly a little bit too early for me to listen to all of that. Whereas this, I was listening to about the different autonomous zones and the capital gains and acceptance as a currency. So those are the bits which I heard, and then I caught up some bits around Jack Mallers, which we'll go into. So that's probably the highlight of my week, but it's been a bit non-eventful, which isn't always a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, wage slaves.
Well, I've not been working, been on paternity, which has been fun, really, really good actually, because I've watched a lot, if not all, of the Bitcoin 2022 event, and it made me think, I just need to be there. Not want, I need to be there. And it was interesting as well, because naturally following Bitcoin, you can see that the event has got bigger and bigger and bigger, and the queues are obviously huge, 20,000 people all descending into Miami. But there were different conferences on and different talks on all at the same time, or well, some that would clash. And then you've got a real dilemma to think, right, well, where do I go? And I was thinking, this genuinely, I was thinking, like, we'd all have to obviously go together, the 4 Bs, naturally the 3 of us, and we'd have to divide and conquer, perhaps. But I'd see this kind of like, and I know we were just talking off air, it's like a school field trip where I want to read your notes. Like, don't leave anything out that I missed. And and whichever conference that I go to, I'm not only just there for the laughs, I'm there to really take in and absorb the content. And I was on this like last year, but this year it really clicks and I'm really getting it. And I'm like, yeah, fantastic. And I just thought somehow there needs to be a family trip. And by the way, I messaged you, didn't I?
Yeah, we're chatting about holidays, because I was looking at holidays going, man, things have got expensive. People are putting out silly prices for average places, and then we got into Disney. I was like, hold on, it's a Bitcoin event every year in Miami?
Well,
last 2 years.
Yeah, the last 2 years have been Miami. It used to be traditionally in San Francisco, But then,
fuck San Francisco.
but San Francisco went super COVID, Karen, wouldn't let them do an event. But the only place it did was Miami. And then it's just taken off there. So they've just gone, you know what? San Francisco wasn't the place. Because I think if you go back to almost 2013, that's when the conference started. All San Francisco, all the way up to 2020. 2020 got cancelled. They tried to do 2021 in San Francisco. They refused and went, you can't hold the event here. They moved to Miami in 2021. It was the biggest event of all time because it was the only event on. And then they just went, fuck it, we're staying here for 2022. Then they outdid themselves, the next biggest Bitcoin event ever. So clearly, Miami is the sweet spot. Like it's got everything.
There's a possible
the mayor as well. That's a Bitcoiner in Miami.
Yeah, exactly.
As well.
Yeah.
There's a possible combination there. So it's like, oh yeah, let's go to Disney, but Daddy's got to work in Miami for 3 days.
Yeah,
I think.
I
think Sir Neverlook and Dr. 10% have got a plan. So it'll be like, we're going to go on holiday with Sir Neverlook's family as well.
Yeah.
Girls, you're going to have to stay.
Fancy seeing you at the airport.
Yeah, we've got a work conference for 3 days. Is that why you're here?
That's such a plan. Yeah, the wives and the kids go off to Disneyland. The boys go off to Miami, bitch.
Yeah.
to work.
The thing is, when it moons, it is work. You know, because it will give them so much towards the retirement. Then, well, what's the problem?
Yeah. It is no different to the current event that's going on in London, which is ICE, the biggest gaming event, you know, in Europe, if not the world.
Yeah, it's weird. And you guys have never been to a Bitcoin event before, have you?
No.
And it's seriously, like, what really orange pilled me, I think, was I was probably where you were, I don't know, say a year or so ago, where you still had some doubts. And so I just went to these Bitcoin events on my own. And because no one that I knew was in it. I was sharing stuff with you guys, but you guys didn't get it.
I was ignoring it. I was like, fuck off with your magical internet money.
I know.
Just like he was drinking way too much whiskey and he needed help. I was just being a good friend and supporting him. But
I was like, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I know. And I knew you were doing that as well, which was why I was like, I'm not even going to tell you that I'm going to the event because I know you're not going to come. So I just went off. I went to America, Prague, freaking Malta, all these places on my own, and met some Bitcoiners. And oh my God, what you realize is we're all just fucking brothers. Like seriously, once you meet a Bitcoiner in real life, you go, we agree on like 99% of everything. It's fucking awesome. Like you go out for beers with them, you go out for meals. And this is because you know that the whole fiat world is a scam. Like 99% of people don't know that. So when you meet the 1% that do, you're just like, oh, we're so on a level. And like all the little in jokes you have about various Bitcoin Twitter shit, it's just like, I can't talk like this to anyone else. And you go, did you see that tweet from da-da-da? And he did this, and then you got schooled, and everyone on the table knows. And it's just so nice. It's like Bitcoin Twitter in real life. So I would just, unfortunately, I do think potentially the events have got too big. So it might not have the same impact on you as it did on me, because you might end up just talking to shitcoiners, because Bitcoin 2022, unfortunately, had a high percentage of shitcoiners at it, even though the content was Bitcoin only. But who knows? I still say like definitely road trip. Let's go meet some Bitcoiners. Like try and get in.
It'd be good for an event, you know, even if it's just a European one, because I think the Miami one might be too hard to really get, you know, now because it's so popular. But you know, if it's a European one,
but you're just going to be sat at the back. It's going to be a bit of bullshit.
Yeah, and you're right. It will be filled with shitcoiners, but the event is, you know, predominantly, if not dominant, or Bitcoin. But the harmonious effects that you talk about, I still got that from a lot of the guests in terms of, you know, Bitcoin is welcoming to all, and that still certainly rings true and came across from the event. So you know, let's keep a lookout, because pre-COVID I remember seeing, you know, there was a Bitcoin calendar with loads of various different events, with obviously Bitcoin 2020 at the time being the pinnacle. And we talk about these wars and things going on in the world as WWE. Bitcoin 2022 is the WrestleMania, the show-stopping event. And all the others are like the Summer Slams, the Thanksgivings here, and Survivor Series here. But really, we want to be at the Mecca. And we want to be at the show-stopping, stupendous event of them all, Bitcoin 2022.
But I must admit, even though you've said all that, I still do think if I took you guys to like a little event in Prague, you would learn more.
Yeah, okay.
And potentially I would get you in front of like a Bitcoin Core developer that is literally one of the OGs that codes in Bitcoin. And in a smaller event, you'll get to speak to those guys. Bitcoin 2022, you're getting nowhere near them. Like even if you pay 10 grand for like the VIP pass, you might get to say hi and they sign your freaking, I don't know, agenda or something. It's kind of bollocks. Like the smaller events, that is where the signal is. Because otherwise, I must admit, I don't think I missed out on anything in Bitcoin 2022 because it was all online. It was streamed super well. So of the talks, I heard everything. And then I go, but what were the conversations happened to the side? And when I realized I didn't miss anything was when one of the speakers asked, who owns Ethereum in this room? 75% of the room put their hands up. And I just go, you're not my guys. You're not my guys. You're crypto guys. You're not Bitcoin.
I was going to say they're not Bitcoin because they don't understand the principles of economics, Austrian economics anyway.
Exactly. And all the events I have been to in my life, if you ask that question, who owns Ethereum, no one would have put their hands up.
So does anyone want to put their hand up for Ethereum owning on this pod?
I've still not sold.
You own like one, don't you?
I only own 3 and a bit.
Oh shit, that's more than I thought.
My average dollar cost average is like 300 and something. So I bought and held and never sold.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where I'm already now, as you can tell, nearly a 10x on that. So yeah.
But why hold on to it then?
I think there's another cheeky 10 in there just through Bitcoin pulling it through. Sell, convert, happy days.
The gamble is just going to appreciate more than Bitcoin in a shorter period of time.
The
thing is that whenever I hear that, provided you think it's going to appreciate more and the end game is to convert it to Satoshis, that's all good. If it's like a small percentage of your stack, fine, experiment with a little bit, buy some dink doink if you want. If you think it's going to 100x and Bitcoin's only going to 10x, then you're going to convert it over. Smart way of accumulating some extra sats. But it's when I've got a problem with it is if you actually think Ethereum is a genuine network and it's going to compete with Bitcoin, and then potentially the flipping is going to happen and Ethereum is going to become number one. That's when it's like, okay, now I'm out. No, fuck off. Like,
well, that's the person that continues to buy into it. This is, and I can obviously show you the.
It may not be buying it. It's just someone who's stuck on the kind of like ledge between the two, isn't it? So I've come across people like that who've been like, oh, Ethereum's got some good things. They say they're going to do this and that. Well, in the last 4 years, they've done fuck all.
Yeah.
They launched JPEGs on the blockchain in the last 4 years.
They keep on saying they're going to do proof of stake, but they haven't. It's still centralized. And now they're saying that they're being deflationary, but they're only burning some of the new coins. So it's not deflationary, it's still inflationary. I just think it's I was in a similar situation to you. We both bought Ethereum when we were shit coining, when we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And
it was a gamble.
Yeah, it went up in price while I had it, but I missed from when it went from hundreds to thousands because I sold it before then. So I did miss out on some gains, but I didn't have any faith in it. I just went, Ethereum could go to zero for as much as I'm concerned now. So I sold it, put it into Bitcoin, had to pay some heavy gas fees, which is always nice. But yeah, if I'd held on for a bit more, I would have got thousands for it. And, it's only by a month or two.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on. I apologize for mentioning the E word because it's ended up us talking about the fucking E word again. So we have a question from the audience, don't we? Let's start the pod with that one. Let's get it out of the way. And it's a great question, I think.
Yeah, sorry, just pull this up on my screen so I can actually read it. So this is from the Everyman.
So we're nicknaming him the Everyday Man. That's your nickname.
The Everyman's a bit easier to say.
The Everyman. Yeah, the Everyman.
So he's been watching Quadriga, so documentary on Netflix. We talked about this, I want to say about 6 months ago when we listened to the podcast. So obviously going to be roughly the same, but I thought the pod was really good, whereas I've heard the show isn't actually that good. So personally, I go for the pod if you're looking to look into the story. But if you've seen it or listened to it, I probably wouldn't bother watching or listening to the other one. It'll be pretty much the same story. So his question's about, it's all good and well, not your keys, not your cheese, but if you wanted to convert to fiat, you'd have to use an exchange, wouldn't you? So is regulating exchanges, etc., necessary to avoid a Quadriga happening again? So the situation which happened here is one of Gerald Cotton's customers, I think he pulled out his Bitcoin from the exchange. So he actually held it and it was like 400 grand's worth in dollars. And he then wanted to cash it out. So he had his keys, he'd done everything right, and he fed it back into exchange to get the fiat. And that's when Gerald Cotton did one. So obviously Gerald Cotton hit his magic number where he thought, fuck you all. I'm going to go and play blackjack with some hookers and blow for the rest of my life.
Well, I'll just stop you on that one. So what happened was he had money on Quadriga and he'd already kind of lost that money. And then what happened is he sold his apartment and a few other bits, and they were offering an extra 10% for anybody that like put money in. So that enticement, especially when he had those types of numbers, made him think, right, well, I'm already down and out. I'm selling my apartment. So, but if I put it into there and then I just change it back into fiat. So yeah, if I give my fiat into that and then get it back out, I'll get 480. But
it was seriously not that. So he never had Bitcoin. Sorry, this is the Everyman was telling me because I've forgotten this story. So it isn't that he bought off Quadriga and then he took Bitcoin and then he held it and then he went to sell it. It was the fact that he sold his flat to put more money into the exchange.
Yeah, he lost it trading.
Yeah.
So yeah, he never had his cheese. So I suppose that's the issue here.
Which ironically, that's exactly how the Quadriga guy lost all the money as well. Weirdly, he wasn't spending it on coke and hookers. At least he had a good time doing that. He was actually, we've tracked his Bitcoin addresses now, and he sent all the Bitcoin that was deposited to the Quadriga exchange to other exchanges. He then traded it, leveraged it, and lost it. So he lost all the money trying to gamble it, essentially. I think what his plan was, he was going to take the 200 million that his customers had given him, go and trade it, make it like 10x, so become 2 billion. And I think his plan was at the end, hopefully, pay back the 200 million to the account, keep 1.8 billion for yourself, and then go and live a nice life and sell the exchange.
No one would ever know because no one's ever hurt.
But the problem, exactly. It's like a victimless crime, even though it was mass fraud. No one had ever uncovered it because everyone was made whole in the end. The problem with Quadriga was he took the 200 million, gambled it, and lost.
Okay, so then, I misunderstood this, and I think
he then goes to India, supposedly dies, and now it all gets uncovered. Yeah. So John, what was your answer? I know you said you answered his question, and I've got like a 10-minute rant about this. I've been thinking about it all day, but go on. What was your answer?
So I suppose there's multiple ones. You know, I think the place of regulation is it's actually a trusted company, so people have held their cheese. You know, that's what I think about regulated. It's not so much following the money laundering procedures. So it's more kind of like a Trustpilot rating. You know, we know this exchange is good. We've pulled our Bitcoin. But I think my kind of answer to this is if you can't hold your asset, then it's not yours. And so someone's not letting you hold your asset. What are you doing? And I think with anything else, it's not just throwing in 400 grand as you start, it's putting in 50 quid or 100 quid and then taking it off the exchange. So it's dollar cost averaging in order to get the money out. So that's my kind of answer. But there are other ways to do is like peer to peer. And there are ways to get non-KYC Bitcoin, but not loads, which I'm aware of.
Yeah, because I think why I really like this question, it's really, really good because he still goes, the everyman, this question is brilliant because it's one of those where it's go, okay, you can hold your keys, but eventually you want to sell. So isn't regulation good to make sure the exchanges are solid? And I'm a perfect example of this. I've sold some Bitcoin recently. I sold it on Coinbase purely to help myself buy a house. So I could have been a victim of Quadriga. Right. So that's just the reason why your question, which is hinting at more regulation is good on exchanges, that my answer to this question is fundamentally no. And it's no for two reasons. Number one is regulation does not help the everyman. It actually helps government only. And number two, you shouldn't actually be selling your Bitcoin anyway. And when the time comes, you'll never need to sell your Bitcoin. So if I start on point probably 2 first, right? So I sold some Bitcoin. What exchange did I pick? Number one, it was Coinbase. Right. So I don't trust exchanges, I verify them. So number one, how do I know that Coinbase is not another Quadriga? Because Quadriga had no Bitcoin. As we just explained, the guy had gambled all the Bitcoin away and it was gone. Coinbase have 20 known Bitcoin addresses. That is their cold storage. I know they have their Bitcoin in cold storage. Every time a bit of Bitcoin moves from that cold storage, I am alerted. I am on the Twitter account that monitors these accounts. I have it alerted on my phone. If any Bitcoin moves from these cold storages, I know. So if Coinbase get hacked, lose all their Bitcoin, I know. So my risk of hitting a Quadriga is much less. The only reason Quadriga actually got away with this, because there was such a small exchange, no one was doing the verification on them. Everyone was just trusting. The first most Bitcoiners heard about Quadriga was when the guy had died and all the money had gone. But number two, on that, just extending on why you should never sell your Bitcoin. Look, I know I have sold some, right? So I'm a bit of a hypocrite. But in reality, when people moved from shells, rocks, beads to a gold standard, once we'd moved to a gold standard, no one was going, look how much gold I can buy, how many shells I can buy for some gold now. Look how many rhinestones I can buy with some gold. The exchange is fucking pointless, right? It essentially becomes the tiniest piece of gold is worth all the rhinestones or all the shells because you just know that they are essentially infinite supply. That is going to happen here with Bitcoin. If you hold your Bitcoin for long enough, converting it back to fiat is going to be nonsensical. You're not going to be converting it back to pounds or dollars or euros or anything. The world is going to be on a Bitcoin standard. Everything will be denominated in Bitcoin. Someone will be trying to go £1 million for like one Satoshi. You can go, no, it's just like padding for a mattress. Like, no, I don't want your crappy dollars.
So basically, to summarize yours, it's life-changing kind of like purchases, looking at a property or something like that, or something which actually better your family.
Well, everyone's got a moon, don't they? So, or a point.
Exactly.
Everyone's got a
price. But it's also keeping Bitcoin as well. It's not selling all your Bitcoin.
Yeah, I just want to
important.
The first point I said was on the regulation point, right? So I just want to talk about regulation. So number one, my main point is you shouldn't be selling your Bitcoin. If you do, verify the exchange. So his point is, but what if you just regulate these exchanges better? You just want more good exchanges. Like people are going to want to sell their Bitcoin. They're not all like us, right? Why does regulation not matter a fuck to how safe the exchange is? My answer to that straight away is regulation does not help the everyman. It helps the government. Why? The Quadriga and Mt. Gox, both the two exchanges most famous for going bust, both fully complied to know your customer regulation, to anti-money laundering regulation, and PCI compliance. Completely completely compliant. Why did those regulations not help the person? Because they're not designed to. They are purely designed to help the government. All they did was track the people coming in and the money going in. They did not protect the person from what the individual did with the funds once they were inside the company. There's no regulation that really applies to that unless the company IPOs, which again is another positive for Coinbase, by the way, because they've IPO'd, they have to verify their cash in the bank and the Bitcoin they have on their balance sheet every quarter. So it's another reason to use Coinbase. They're the only company that have IPO'd that you can buy Bitcoin from. But
the 4B is sponsored by Coinbase.
I must admit, I don't even like Coinbase, but they're the safest one. So just use them. But essentially, so to go, okay, does regulation really help? Like, who are the most regulated organizations in the world? Let's just say, oh, but it hasn't all hit Bitcoin yet. So the reason why Quadriga and Mt. Gox has happened is because the full regulation hasn't hit. And if we got more regulation, then we would get less exit scams and less exchanges stealing money. Let's just look back into 2008, the banking crisis. The most regulated companies probably in the world. They gambled away the entire world's money. The UK and the USA, 8 out of 10 banks went bust. They essentially did a Quadriga. The only difference between them and Quadriga was they were attached to the government and got government bailouts. Quadriga weren't. If the Quadriga were attached to the government, they just got thrown 200 million over the fence and everyone gets made good and no one even thinks there was a scandal because they got bailed out. But the only reason Quadriga hurt so much is because 200 million evaporated with that one guy who gambled it and lost.
But I think it does come back to a key point around, your keys. If you haven't got the asset, what are you doing?
Of course, I'm just purely hammering home the point of regulation means shit. It doesn't improve exchanges.
I'd also like to think about regulating the exchange, though, to potentially do the right thing, because I think a few of us I'm not too sure about yourself, Dr. Eva 10%, but I know you're also registered on different exchanges in case an exchange goes down. So I have Gemini, I've got Bitpanda, I've got Coinbase, and another as well. Essentially, in case somebody doesn't let me in, and lo and behold, I've got a story myself to tell, because Bitpanda at this moment in time are doing maintenance. So thankfully, my weekly dollar cost averaging went through at my allotted time, Sunday 11:45. So in the night. But I then tried to get onto it on Monday, couldn't get into the exchange. So I got a couple £100 in there, but at that point in time, couldn't get into it. And so does regulation actually force the exchange to be whiter than white and compliant and actually help me, the customer, to access my money, access the platform, respond back to me after I raise a query as to why I wasn't even getting an email when I couldn't even log into the account? It doesn't.
No. Go back over the last 100 years and have a look at all the banks and how many hundreds of millions of people, if not billions, have lost life savings, stocks and shares, and their pension funds that were securely stored in a highly regulated bank. All the victims are right there. We were very nearly the victims. The only reason we weren't is because our government happened to be one of the top governments in the world at the time, and they bailed it out. We very, very nearly lost everything. And that is like the Bitcoin regulation. Essentially, all they're doing, they're not inventing new regulation. They're just cascading down the finance markets regulation onto Bitcoin. So they're just copy and pasting it over it. And as we've seen, like, regulation is not designed to help the individual. Really, all it is done, like, so AML and KYC, what is it really for, right? It's not for the person, it's for the government. All they want to do is, as you verify yourself into an organization, every time you do a transaction over £10,000 or $10,000 within that exchange, they will send a flag to a government agency to say that this person has done this thing. The only reason they flag that as potential fraud is because they want to collect the tax on that transaction. They want to make sure that all the people that are doing transactions over certain amounts of money, they want to make sure that their tax return reflects what they're seeing in the financial institutions that they're playing in. It is not to prevent fraud. It is not to prevent terrorist funding. As we've seen in a report that came out, I think it was about a year ago, I posted it on LinkedIn and got virtually zero engagement because probably most of my environment and my contacts are identity/regulatory people, because that's unfortunately the market I came from. I'm ashamed of it, but it is what it is. But the report said 0.2% of fraudulent transactions are stopped by KYC and AML regulation. 99.8% go straight through because they know exactly what they're doing. So why do companies spend tens and tens of billions on trying to stop KYC and AML fraud? In reality, it's so the governments can track the money and make sure they receive their pound of flesh in taxation. That is why regulation predominantly exists. The only second case I can see why regulation exists is when companies get so large, what they start to do is build a regulatory moat around themselves. So they get very close to government and start to go, you need to check this, you need your compliance department of X, you need to do PCI compliance, you need to have this document, you need to be auditing this thing every month, which essentially just means as a startup, instead of just having two guys in a shed doing a startup, you suddenly now need to do anything in the finance market. You need huge funding and millions of pounds of funding to be able to even get going, just to adhere to the compliance and the regulatory demand, which is why the banks have not been challenged really for the last 100 years. The same top 5 banks are still the top 5 banks. And it's only been the last 10 years or so that we've had some type of competition, because the mobile internet has come out and allowed some people to make some roads into it. But even those challenger banks are still hugely funded. They've got tens of millions of pounds in the bank. You're not seeing some guys in a garage compete with Barclays because it's impossible. The regulatory moat to become a bank is nearly impossible. It's why people like me can't expand the functionality of my app to be able to buy and sell Bitcoin. I would love to be able to do that, but I know the regulatory demand on me to be able to do that, I need to employ 10 people to make sure I'm compliant. I need servers around the world. I need to store data for 15 years. I don't want to do all these things. I don't want to ask for everyone's driving license and passport. So ultimately what happens is I don't even compete. I just go, I'm not up for the game. I'm going to leave it to someone else, which just means the market is void of innovation. And that is what regulatory compliance ends up enabling, right? Number one, it means the government can collect their tax more efficiently. Number two, it means new entrants can't enter because it's too expensive. So do I want more regulation in Bitcoin? No, I don't want no more regulation in Bitcoin, no more.
Yeah, there's also the fact that these new companies are often actually, they're invested in by the likes of the Barclays and so on. So if they get too big, they just buy them out.
Yeah.
So that's a no to regulation, and hopefully every man that answers your question.
Oh man, that seems to go on for about 20 minutes. Jesus
Christ. Every man, please give us more, and anybody else that's listening around the world as well. Drop them in the comments, get in contact, and yeah, we'll answer those questions on the next pod as well. You gave me a
reminder to go on Kraken and make sure I could actually log in, because I've never actually bought anything through there.
Yeah, that was another one I'm logged.
It is very important actually. Whenever you sign up for a new exchange, so I've got 5 or 6 exchanges that I have access to. Make sure you buy and sell at least £1,000 worth of Bitcoin, because that essentially verifies your account. Because if you do that and then no fraud flags are raised for 6 months, they basically just screen check you. If you don't do that, the first time you do any kind of serious transaction, you'll get all the fraud flags will go on you and you'll get your account frozen. It's a pain in the ass. So yeah, so one of the ways to make sure that when you finally do want to sell some Bitcoin and your cheese that you've got stored and you want to sell it, then yeah, have multiple places. But so for example, so when I sold a bit of my Bitcoin, for example, even though I trust Coinbase and I've got high transaction volume, haven't gone through them, I still only sent them a little bit. I sent them a little bit, sold it, got it off the exchange. Then I sent them a little bit more, got it off the exchange. So my Bitcoin, when I'm saying I'm trusting Coinbase, I probably trusted them for about an hour in total to hold my coins before they were sold. So
did you do it in tranches, or did you do it in one big bang?
No, I did it in tranches. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would never like send large amounts anywhere. Like, it's just no matter how wealthy I was to get, it's just always just
so I think that's the other part of this one is, doing things in, whether it's buying, whether it's selling, and then also making sure you can store, because I think there's fundamental bits which you need to understand before you even get to should a exchanges be more regulated, because it is take custody. That is one of the core principles about Bitcoin, is you're not dependent upon a bank, you're dependent upon yourself.
Yeah, and if you're willing to hold for long enough, you will never need to sell. All this is like just gone. So your ledger, ultimately, you'll end up, the only place you'll send your Bitcoin from your ledger is to a wallet on your phone for your day-to-day spends. It's like taking money from your bank account and putting it into your wallet back in the day, where you take cash out of the bank. That's what you're going to be doing. You'll be accessing your ledger, take out your day-to-day spends, put it in your wallet, which will be a digital wallet. You'll then spend that day to day. You won't ever be converting to fiat ever. It's going to be Bitcoin only, and it's a matter of time till that happens. And this is the whole meme, right? Of the Matrix meme of Neo asking Morpheus, "You're telling me that one day my Bitcoin will be worth millions of dollars per coin?" And Morpheus goes, "No, in one day, you'll never sell your Bitcoin.
Never have to.
You won't have to. Yeah,
you won't have to." Exactly. So that's the meme, right? And it's kind of like a long explanation of getting to that meme, which is, when the time comes and your Bitcoin is actually worth $15 million a coin, the last thing you're going to want to do is sell it for those dollars, because they are going to zero. So you're going to be holding on to your Bitcoin.
And this is the beauty of where we're at right now as well, because we have over 100 hours of content. Now we're on pod 50, and we can look back and we can see, the clock in the background, but we can also say that when that time comes, we told you so, bitches.
Yeah.
Now get back to work on my boat.
Get back to work. Exactly. Should we talk about the event?
Yeah. Let's move on a bit. Miami 2020.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So for anyone listening, all the videos are available on YouTube through Bitcoin Magazine. Is that right? Yeah,
they're the one that hosted the event. Yeah.
So check them out. There's some really good ones. Jack Mauler's is probably one which I'd recommend, and I quite like the Francis. I don't quite know how to say. Is it
Ngannu?
Yeah,
baddest man on the planet.
The baddest man.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good one, because he's just talking. Well, we'll go into it in a minute. So what do we want to start with?
I will actually say, just on this, YouTube took down Bitcoin Magazine during the event. Now, Bitcoin Magazine said, obviously, this is a big event for us, happens every year. We're due to obviously have lots of viewers and subscribers happening during this period of time, and it got taken down. Now, it got put back up, but
how quickly?
Something in the algorithm meant that the whole channel and all the videos were censored. And so it goes back to decentralization needs to happen, and there needs to be a platform that is decentralized, which isn't just ran off some algorithmic code that no one actually knows how to figure out. So thankfully, it's all there. The channel's back up, but just be careful.
How long was it down for?
It was about 10 hours or something, because they were shitting themselves, because obviously we're on UK time, so we could kind of see it. They were starting like 10 a.m. But for us, that was like 6 p.m. So I was going on their YouTube channel waiting for them to come up, and their channel was just gone. So I was checking their Twitter, and they were going, we've been taken down. What I'm pretty sure what happened is that shitcoiners go on and report it as spam and report it as And what YouTube end up doing is if you get so many reports over a certain period of time, they just automatically react and just take channels down, because why would a channel suddenly get thousands of reports of scamming unless they're scamming? But this is a case where they clearly weren't scamming. They were just promoting an event.
Yeah.
So they got put back straight away, but they got took down for about 10 hours. Their entire account got taken down. And I think that this just, unfortunately, when you look at Bitcoin, when we rely on our information, if you're not there in person, it's either Twitter or YouTube, which is where we go. And holy shit, these two companies are US based, massively regulated by US authorities. That what you can and can't say is very easy to overstep the mark. Like if you read the T's and C's for YouTube and for Twitter, it is incredible. Like especially if you go into COVID or Ukraine or any government type issue, they have specific clauses in there.
So one of the many things which you've been banned for.
Well, I read the T's and C's for Spotify the other day, and it literally says in there, if you deny that like Corona or COVID is like a serious illness, then you'll be banned from our platform. So I'm just waiting for the ban. Like, when's the ban happening? Spotify, ban me, bitch. But yeah, it's sad.
It's
like,
been nice knowing you folks. Pod 50, we made it all this way, and yeah, of course, we're down. We're gone.
We just got to get the two more.
Yeah,
because that's the thing. Because like Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter, Jesus, if those three were to ban Bitcoiners, for example, if they made discussing non-fiat currency a bannable event, then we're done. Like, it's just, where the fuck does our conversation go? We don't have a decent place right now. It is a very serious risk.
What's really scary as well is that there are hundreds of thousands of videos uploaded to YouTube and Spotify and so on every day. And obviously various different things said on Twitter all the time. But if the algorithm can sift through all of that really, really quickly and then spot it, catch it, and then take it out, because sometimes it's not even through people like obviously saying, oh, I think you need to ban this, or pulling it up. It's the actual, I guess, the spiders in the algorithm actually sifting through it, seeing it, and then say, we don't like what that person's just said, let's take that out. Bam, you're gone. And it's so quick, and it's only going to get quicker, because the net is only going to be, they're only actually going to look at this harsher and harsher each and every time. So you've got to be careful.
There's been guys on Twitter that have had 50, 100,000 tweets, like DMs of conversations that are super valuable. They get banned, gone.
Yeah.
Instant. Just your entire existence on the platform, gone. So that's exactly what happened to Bitcoin Magazine, wasn't it? They didn't just get their live stream banned. They got their entire back catalogue, their entire channel.
Correct, yes.
You went to their channel and it went, nothing is here.
Yes.
But that's kind of terrifying, right? They can literally just, the history books won't show you even existed. It wasn't one video that did it. They delete everything you ever said on that channel, gone forever, bye. And that's why we can't trust these channels. But anyway,
what's the 4Bs backed up at?
I've got some backups. Hard copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the hard copies. But yeah, so the main highlights for the event for me, right? So we were expecting, right, before the event, we were hoping for some countries to be announced. We got 0, unfortunately. Like I hate to say it, my prediction at the beginning of the year, my heart said 0, but I went, no, I'm going to say 2 because I want to say 2. But unfortunately, we got 0 because we got Portugal, Honduras, and Mexico, which sounds like 3, right? Nah, it's not 3. Portugal, one city in Portugal, Madeira. They're not on a Bitcoin standard, but there's no capital, no income tax, actually. No income tax on Bitcoin. In Honduras, Prospera, there's no capital gains on Bitcoin. And then in Mexico, with a big country we're hoping to be launched as legal tender, all they announced was they were going for coffee with the president to discuss it. which is the lamest piece of shit ever. But the girl that went on stage was the girl we've referenced numerous times on this pod as tweeting about putting Mexico on a Bitcoin standard. But what it did come up for me, the one positive out of these three things, so potentially we could have had Portugal, Honduras, and Mexico on a Bitcoin standard. That'd have been epic, and we'd probably be at 100K right now. But instead, we're at 39K, which is fucking nearly 10K less than we were last week.
That's why it was 40 at the start of the pod.
Yeah, I know. We dropped $1,000 since we come on. So
you're being too negative. Stop it.
I know. But what did come out of it was something called the de facto Bitcoin standard. So the de facto Bitcoin standard means you can use Bitcoin as a currency, even though the country that you're spending it in doesn't recognize it as legal tender. And the reason why that's different, so say in the UK, we can't do that because every time I spend Bitcoin in the UK, it's a taxable event. It's not tender, not legal tender. So every time I spend Bitcoin, the taxman wants to know, what did you buy that at? You're selling it at that. So you can get the goods, but you owe me tax in the middle. These three countries here are all suggesting we're not going to put it on a legal tender immediately, but we're going to remove income tax and capital gains tax from Bitcoin, which then does mean I can buy and sell things with Bitcoin and not worry about the tax implications. So basically you let the market decide. You don't force the market. By putting a country on a Bitcoin legal tender, it means you have to accept Bitcoin to sell your goods. Otherwise it's illegal. Someone can come up to you and offer you Bitcoin for your goods. You have to accept it. Otherwise you're breaking the law. These laws actually are a bit of a softer way of doing it, which I actually more approve of, which go, let's just knock the tax implications off and go, if someone was to come into your shop and buy something for Bitcoin, you can say yes or no. But if you do say yes, for both parties, don't worry about the tax. There's no weird capital gains. It's not like selling a shares. It's not like selling gold. It's like just paying in dollars or pounds or euros or whatever it is. So that's the thing I took from that part of the conference was the de facto Bitcoin standard, which I think is something that's probably going to become more of a thing because getting Bitcoin as a proper legal standard is going to be super hard for a whole country. But getting the tax stuff removed seems easier. So,
well, I'd like to reach, so as in, if we get to December 31st and we've got no countries, I'm going to take Portugal, Honduras, Mexico, and Ngannu. So then we can say, we've got 4 for the year. So, we'll see where we get to. And maybe we will get another El Salvador.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think it's unlikely because it's one city in 2 of these countries, which in reality, it's not the country. It's not the country. It's not. It's like we've had in America, like numerous little towns and cities have gone onto a Bitcoin standard, but we've always just passed that over quite lightly, haven't we? Because until America goes on the Bitcoin standard, who gives a fuck, right? So Portugal and Honduras, like especially Honduras, they could have been the one. They were my tip. I even said Honduras are going on a Bitcoin standard. It's getting launched in Bitcoin 2022. One city. Disappointed.
Both of them, well, Portugal and Honduras, it's like an autonomous city. So it's almost like a bit like a principality, like Monaco. So it can have its own weird little rules. So it is a little bit odd. So we were hoping for Honduras, but hasn't happened. So I can see the benefits of those, but it wasn't what we're hoping for. I mean, what were both your highlights from Miami 2022?
I think the Jack Mallers was good, although I saw he was getting loads of shit about is Jack Mallers a good talker or not in terms of him being on stage. And also one that I put in is the hardware wallets and secure Bitcoin storage for me, because even when they were talking on stage, and for anyone obviously that hasn't seen this yet, it was 3 different people from 3 different Bitcoin wallet storage companies that were all thinking about trying to bring a product to market that actually makes it easy for the next 100 million people that come into Bitcoin so that they can safely secure their keys. But they were saying it live on stage, that they haven't got all the answers. They haven't figured things out, which came back to me and resonated with me to say that we are still so early in this game. And, everyone talks about, oh yeah, but it's gone now, the boat's flown and so forth. And I'm like, no, you just don't get it. Like, it really hasn't. And to hear these people talking, like there was one woman in particular that had worked in standard, like normal traditional finance, and had moved over to the crypto world in terms of Bitcoin and looking at this. And she was just like, yeah, we need to figure these things out. We need to make it user friendly. This is nowhere near easy for my mum to pick up and store. We're thinking about how can we do it on a mobile phone. It's not there yet because of course everybody has one of those, or most people have one of those. And then they were also talking about the third world in terms of like places like in Africa and Nigeria and how they're using it in the various different use cases. So we have to think not only from a Western world perspective, but globally, how can everybody safely secure, and perhaps also there will be different use cases. We talk about holding for life, but others will be transacting daily with Bitcoin. Different use cases, and we need to figure this out. So that for me was my real key highlight, because it reinforced how early we are.
Yeah, and my highlight was around the mining talks. So not only did they laugh at the ESG bollocks and all the climate change nonsense, but essentially Block, which are formerly known as Square and Blockstream, they announced they're going to start making the chips that are required to go in the miners. Because at the moment, that is a huge point of centralization of Bitcoin. There's only 2 major companies in the world that produce these chips. And we are doubling that with Block and Blockstream, both now going to produce them. And the biggest announcement they both made was they said, when we figure out how to make these chips, we're going to open source what we've done. Because we want hundreds, if not thousands of companies to make these chips. So that was fantastic. That's a huge kind of update, because there is centralization in mining and nodes around the component parts. And fundamentally, if you did want to attack Bitcoin, is you could go to one of those 2 companies that provide those chips now and put a virus or some type of bug into that chip, let it get put out into all the miners, and then trigger that chip at some point and potentially take over the network in some shape or form. So we need to prevent that attack before they even think about doing it. Block and Blockstream are ahead of the game. They're going to create these chips, start making them. And hopefully what it will also do then is bring mining and nodes to the everyman. It's almost a theme of today, which is because one of the reasons why the chips and miners and all that stuff are expensive is because the 2 companies that have the main component parts, they charge what they want to charge. And if you can't pay for the fee for the microchip, you don't get the part. Like, and this goes for cars, microwaves, your TV, they all have the same microchip in them to make these things work. And we now have 2 companies dedicated to Bitcoin. They're going to sell them exclusively for nodes and miners. That's massive.
It's actually also, again, I watched that one, reinforces the evolution of where we've come from, because once upon a time you could run a mine, or you could mine Bitcoin just using your laptop and the CPU, then the GPU, and now obviously you need an ASICs essentially to be able to mine Bitcoin. And it'd be great, because I actually thought I could see a company like NVIDIA who make chips getting involved, or even Apple perhaps getting involved into making chips, because they've got the money, they've got the resources, and that would be fantastic.
Another talk I did like was when Francis Ngannou was on stage, who is the UFC heavyweight champ. And it was such a mismatch. It's almost like, it's weird seeing Francis Ngannou in a mismatch, because he was against Max Kaiser. And it was like a lightweight against the heavyweight, but Francis Ngannou, for the first time in his life, is a lightweight, because Max asked him, how do you orange pill people that you know, like specifically in Africa and stuff, and get them into Bitcoin? And Francis, to be fair to him, he went, look, I'm new to this, so it's really hard to explain people about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, the metaverse, and NFTs. And Max just cut him off and just went, Bitcoin is good, but all that rest you just said was total shit. And he just went, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. I'm like, fucking go, Max. It's the baddest man on the planet sat right next to you, and you still called him out. Even the second he started scamming, he fucking called him. And then fair play to Francis, he went, Max, will you come to me to Bitcoin Africa and speak? And Max was like, absolutely, I am there. And I'm like, this is how slowly but surely we orange pill the entire world, because Francis is new. He's
Where's he from originally? Is it Cameroon?
He's from like the salt mines or something of Cameroon.
I missed the bit with Max Kaiser, but I think it's him, because obviously I don't watch UFC, so I wouldn't recognize him. But I'm pretty sure it's him.
Miss him if you saw him.
Well, I was listening to one of the talks, and he was talking about how he was from Cameroon, and basically the French devalued their currency for some reason, because they got nothing to back it, like gold. There's nothing which they could do about it, so he wanted Bitcoin to help stabilize the currency and currencies across Africa. So it is the same person, which I assume it was, because but I just didn't see this, and I wouldn't be able to pick Francis up the street unless you just say, look for the biggest, meanest motherfucker.
Yeah. So let me give you some stats, right? Because,
here we go.
This was recently said. So Francis Ngannou holds a record for the hardest punch ever landed at 129,161 units. So let's put this into real life figures. That's the equivalent to 96 horsepower. So it's equal to getting hit by a Ford Escort going as fast as it can, and it's more powerful than a 12-pound sledgehammer from full force overhead.
96 horsepower. That's 96. 96 horses is 96. One punch.
So that time, so this person who received this punch, will they spark him out straight away? Did he break?
Oh, if you watch any of Ngannou's highlights, when he lands his punch, that's it. Like, he hasn't got a hell of a lot of technique, but if he lands one punch clean, it's good night.
The other guys that he's facing are equally just as bad, so they're not going down like lightly. But again, probably the theme of the show, the everyman is going night until well, I don't know, 2024 and the next Bitcoin halving.
And historically, even the heavyweights, they all know, don't they?
Yeah, they all know.
If one of those punches lands, you can't, your muscles don't help you take a hit. Yeah. You can have the biggest arms, chest, whatever you want. If Ngannou lands a straight punch to the front of your forehead, it's good night. We all know that. Yeah, and so it's weird seeing him on a Bitcoin stage, and then Max Kaiser kind of talking him down. But then it was also very interesting, the fact that he did come from Cameroon. He does come from very poor background. There's still pictures of him shoveling salt or whatever ores out of the ground. It's where he almost got his original strength. He arrives in France, penniless, homeless, goes to a UFC kind of training camp. They realize he's one hell of a guy, and he ends up being the UFC heavyweight champ. And now he's the guy, we've had him on this podcast numerous times. He's the one that's asking to be paid in Bitcoin. He gets it. He comes from a country where their currency is being fucked. Yeah. And no matter how much money you had, it didn't matter because it all went away anyway. So what he wants now is, great, I'm getting paid a decent amount of money now. I'm being valued for what I am actually worth. Don't pay me in that fiat shit. Pay me in Bitcoin.
Correct. Yeah, but it's a good message for someone, who's relatively new to Bitcoin, me understanding. So, that's what I was trying to get at. I didn't know who he was, but I kind of went, it's the right message which needs to be got across. And I just Googled Francis Ngannu salt mines, and there's like a picture of him with a circle around him. And he's the biggest motherfucker, like by a mile there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a monster.
And I was even in the salt mines just shuffling something up. My word.
Yeah.
The saddest news, my low light of Miami 2022 was Bukele not showing up. And it seems to be he put a statement out, because obviously we were really excited. I fully expected Bukele to be on stage with the Honduras president to announcing they were going to go onto Bitcoin standard. Clearly Honduras are nowhere near being able to announce anything like that. But also it seems that El Salvador had riots the weekend before Miami 2022, and he had to stay to essentially kind of govern the country through that. There's already been reports of maybe these were planned riots to purposefully deflect Bukele from being able to go to the event. They're not confirmed. We don't know. It just seems to be mindless violence. There doesn't seem to be any real reason why these riots happen. People just being setting fire to shit, fighting. And then
Bukele's for anything. It's a fairly volatile country. It's at the bottom of the charts on most things. So, that's the thing. He's trying to drag it up, but it is going to be volatile at these times.
Yeah, it was sad not to see him there, but
yeah.
But kind of going to another highlight, we've got Jack Mallers. So with the Shopify new payment layer. So quite an interesting one to watch, because he talked about the evolution of payments from the Diners Club. What was it? It was Visa, then MasterCharge, which renamed as MasterCard.
Yeah.
And he talked about, well, if you actually look at the innovation, the payments industry hasn't been innovated since 1966. So there's been some name changes and they call things different, but it is bordering on 60 years. So he was on calling it boomer technology quite a lot. So the handshake, so it's the fact that when you go for a payment with a card, it's not moved off 1966. So you want to pay for something, it's just shake, yeah, we agree, but we're going to exchange funds across our networks, and that's pretty much it. And so what Jack's brought in is the final settlement layer. So it's actually paid and it's using the Bitcoin Open Network. So this is like the biggest piece of innovation for 60 years, something which really should have probably happened in the 90s from the sounds of it, but massive. And once again, it's looking at Jack Mallers, who's 27, 28.
Yeah.
And he's innovating the world. Absolutely amazing. But he does have a unique way about him, pacing up and down, always wearing a hoodie. But, you can't doubt him. He's starting to come up there into legendary status.
Well, the fact that he's only 27, he's thinking about these things and kind of, but he's innovating in real time. Doesn't claim to know it all, but he is making the rails super easy for when the masses come. And they don't even need to get or understand Bitcoin. Like, I'm sure all of us on the pod don't understand, right? How does my money move when I tap this card when I'm on holiday from here to here? I mean, in a way, we don't really care. We just want to know that it's going to work. But he's making it super easy for you to hold your phone, QR code, be your own bank, essentially, on the move 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
He has made something which isn't just Bitcoin specific as well.
Correct.
You know, if these merchants and banks actually take on the tech, it is revolutionary.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because just to break that down, what it means is you could be holding Bitcoin, but you can tap your Strike card on. Well, essentially, what he's done is he's integrated into Spotify, and he's integrated. Oh, I've just moved the screen up. What was
Shopify, not Spotify.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Spotify. And what was the payment? It basically is a point of sale.
Yeah, Shopify, POS. What else is he on? It's in the notes.
That is it. But essentially, what he said was the point of sale that he'd integrated into. I've forgotten the exact name of it, but they are one of every 6 point of sale terminals in America is that one.
Yeah.
So what he's essentially done is gone. You can own Bitcoin, and if you want to check out in Shopify or one of these 6, which Walmart, a load of like major American shops all use, if you want to just tap your card or check your QR code, they can receive whatever currency they want. You can pay in whatever currency you want, and the fee in the middle is 0%. The fee before was 3%. The Visa and Swift, MasterCard, they're all taking 3%. So his big imagery was you send $100, it goes via the Swift or Visa network, $97 appears at the merchant. You use Strike, pay in Bitcoin. Potentially that Bitcoin is no KYC through the Tor network, completely just off the grid. You can pay with that Bitcoin through Strike, and it goes to Walmart, and they get the $100 you sent. They get $100.
So where does Strike make its money?
I know that a lot of people have been asking that question. I think in reality, at the moment, they don't make money, if I'm being completely honest. That they will make it in the spread. So we've discussed this before. So there's fees and spread. So what he's discussing is a 3% fee. There's also a spread, but the thing is the spread has to be covered in the exchange. So if I have $100 of Bitcoin and they get $100 of dollars at the other end, then the spread would say, well, they've still done me 1%, which means there should be $99 that's received at the other end. At the moment, they say they're not doing that. And I think what Jack is doing is he is so heavily funded by VCs, which this is a potential.
It's a real game changer.
What's a big problem as well for Strike is in the fact that they are funded by VC money. I don't think they have a profitable business right now. I think they are building game-changing architecture at 0% cost or like fees. So, and I think what they think they're going to do in the future is find out what their business model is later. And Jack is such an investable guy. He has Bitcoiners from all around the world going, look, here's 100, 200, 300 million. Just don't worry about profit, build the product, and we'll figure out how to make money later.
Yeah.
So that is both good and bad, because it's good the fact that we're letting guys like Jack experiment and disrupt. It's bad in the fact that if it isn't a profitable business model, then the second he runs out of money, all this goes to pot. So he needs to figure out how to make money.
So you could have just put, like 1 cent or something charge on anything over like, I don't know, $5 or something to undercut them completely.
You've got to remember, he could, based on this, even just do it at 1% instead of the 3% that is being charged and still make money that way.
Mm.
Yeah. Or it's even 0.1% because Visa,
exactly.
MasterCard, they're making an absolute killing.
Well, we've all seen, obviously, just recently, Apple were threatening to just leave Visa because of the fees. So if Apple say, well, hold on, there's a network over here that's about to only charge us 1% because we don't know what was actually finally agreed at the end of it. It's obviously, we backed down, we won't leave you, we won't go to naturally they were already going to go to MasterCard as the only other alternative. But if there is a new player in the marketplace which is lower than both of them, hey, it's going to attract business.
Yeah. I think most people will be super surprised, right, that 3% is the fee.
Yeah,
that is insanely high. For every £100 you send through a wire transfer, if like say you're paying in Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, wherever you shop, when you click your card, of the £100, £3 went to the payment processor, and that payment processor has not innovated for 60 years.
Well, but they just got loads of staff on who do God knows what. But you think about this is kind of like circling it back. I know that this is an open network for whatever currency, but we circle this back to Bitcoin and remittance. So remittance is, what was it, $30 out of every 100 gets basically taxed or taken off them. Yeah. Whereas Bitcoin, you're talking, like what, $1 for the transaction, and then less than a penny for the actual sending. Sorry, when I say transaction, the purchasing of the Bitcoin. So, you're looking for that drastic reduction. And this is the same kind of concept that's used in the Bitcoin open network. And he's going no fee. But if he turned around and just went 0.1 pence or whatever, 0.1%, they go, yeah. And he'd be making a hell of a profit as well on that.
Yeah.
So he really should have just done that.
Well, if I was to guess, like Jack's plan will be put it in at 0, get the market share, then it's 0.1%, 0.2, 0.3. It'll still be well below the 3%, but
oh yeah, it's a fair one for having a payment network while we're on the fiat system. But once you go to Bitcoin, you're on Lightning. It's correct. It's minimal and it's undercuts what he's doing.
Exactly.
But his is just a bridge. It's a gateway. I feel like his is part of the plan to get to a Bitcoin standard in general.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When
we should also touch on that as well, because Michael Saylor was there, of course, at the event. Same with Kathy Wood as well. And Saylor said that all the exchanges should be thinking about putting Lightning into their exchanges as well. So naturally, the best, or one of the best, could be Strike in terms of the Lightning network that they put in and employ.
So do we want to move on to the last one around hardware wallets?
Yeah.
We covered this a bit, but I don't know if you want to dig into it anymore.
Ultimately, I think as you go through your Bitcoin journey, you will think about, and we always we talk about this many a time on the podcast, thinking about moving your money off the exchange, which is a hot wallet, into a cold storage wallet. That could be, we're all fans here of Ledger, or it could be another form of wallet. But essentially, you take full security off your Bitcoin. So yes, it may make you anxious that you have life-changing amounts of money, but that's the trade-off with Bitcoin. We've seen lots of use cases just in the last 6 to 12 months of, banks blocking people. We had the Canadian truckers. We had Afghanistan. We've had the guys over in Ukraine and Russia, where your assets are being frozen. So taking self-custody is super, super important. And wallets allow you to do that. And this talk was all around, perhaps you start off with a wallet or a couple of wallets, you make a backup and then so on. But they want to make it super, super easy for people to be able to hold their money, and maybe even finding some sort of recourse. So we talked about the E word before, but I'll use any other shitcoin that's out there. Perhaps you have Bitcoin and for some reason you put in a different Bitcoin address and you try to send it to there is no recourse. That's lost. It's gone forever. And is there a way where you can dial that back in? And I'll also touch on, and we can explore this as well, is legacy plans. Again, this hasn't actually been fully explored to the same way that we have in the fiat world. And what I mean by that is Dr. Evil 10%, tomorrow the cat bites you on the dick and you die. Where's your Bitcoin going? How's the wife gonna set you guys up?
It's in the change jar.
Yeah. so there's a lot to unpack there, but it was one of those which certainly made me think.
Yeah, I really like this stuff, right? So I really think hardware wallets and stuff, there's plenty of room for improvement, but I still literally, I think on one of the first podcasts of you guys, you were going, these need to be better, it's too hard, I still think, right, there's certain things in life that just need to be hard. And if the second you remove the difficulty, then you're outsourcing the difficulty to someone else. So straight away, the things I think about are your food, the education of your children, your financial well-being. All these things can be outsourced extremely easily, but you get a substandard product and there's loads of risks that come with that. If you take it on board, it is fucking hard. Like learning how to grow your own crops, learning how to teach your own children and educate them, fucking hard. Becoming financially free, really difficult. Controlling your own Bitcoin, guess what? It's not fucking easy. And I don't think any of these things ever will be. Like, when will I must admit, I am still waiting for the one YouTube video that is 5 minutes long that teaches me how to grow all the vegetables I need for an entire season of growth. I still ain't seen it, because guess what? There fucking ain't one, because growing your own veg to provide a family to get through all the seasons of all the various things you need throughout the various kind of temperatures, it's hard shit. So I think we just need to get back to a bit of if we rewind 100 years and we're on a gold standard, no one is thinking, oh, it's a little bit difficult keeping all this gold secure. Nah, every single fucking man of the house knows that they are control of the gold. You need to look after it. You need to secure it. You need to make it accessible so people can spend it when they need to spend it. But if someone breaks down the door, it needs to be secure enough so they can't get it. It's on you. It's on us. Yeah. And we've just eventually, we made it more customer friendly, more user friendly to be able to access this gold by outsourcing all our responsibility to the bank. And what did the bank do? They fucking stole all the money and gave us IOU notes. So we literally stole the money from ourselves by giving it to the bank, and they gave us IOUs. What we're returning to,
anyone listening on this point who hasn't looked at the history of money, it's actually true. It was illegal to own gold in the US after the Second World War.
Yeah.
And it didn't come back till 70s, I think, so 30 years. And this wasn't because it was dangerous. Your child might choke on it or it might poison someone. It was because they wanted your gold to feed you fiat money, which had no value. There was a plan.
Yep. And you were told to hand in your gold and it was confiscatable.
That's a good price. It was a good price, but then they went and printed loads more money, so it was not at a good price.
Yeah.
It was illegal to hold over an ounce of gold. So everyone voluntarily just gave it in. They didn't have to fire a single bullet. Everyone just gave it in. So this is what I'm just thinking about Bitcoin, which is why I honestly think, right, even today, right now, like we're in 2022 now, Bitcoin came out in 2009. We are 13 years in. The hardware wallets and the backup seed words, they are easy. If you literally just spend 2 hours of your time And if you have £200, you can buy a hardware wallet and a backup seed words, metal backup seed words kind of device. So for £200 in 2 hours, you can learn this yourself. So I know it's not as user-friendly as maybe it possibly could be. I know it's not as cheap as it maybe as it could be. But if you are securing a lifetime of generational wealth for £200 in 2 hours, fuck me. Come on, guys. Put some blood, sweat, and tears into this.
But you're talking about the people who are looking at it now.
I'm talking about the people listening to this podcast. Need to get off their ass and fucking spend £200, 2 hours of their time, and fucking secure generational wealth and stop being a fucking pussy.
But the people listening to this podcast will be capable of doing that. But you think about, say, your parents, like, to try and attract the masses in, we've got to have something eventually.
They'll die.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mrs. Orlin.
They're going to die. I hate to say it, but like generations get left behind with currencies. Again, we've seen this. Look back on every single currency. The elderly always get left behind because they are so tied to the previous form of money. They can never accept that everything they have worked their entire life for is now worthless, and they need to convert it to something else. That the youngsters.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point again, but then you think about, well, what about the younger people who just aren't capable of doing this?
They are. Come on. £200, 2 hours. Everyone could do that.
It's true.
But seriously, like, if I was to get, like, I haven't done it yet, but if I could get about an 8 or 9 year old, if I reckon I could talk them through what a hardware wallet does.
I would be questioning you why you're hanging around with 8 or 9 year olds.
Again.
We're trying to own the convictions were never proven. So
I mean, it's all a fair point, but it's an effort. It's the effort to eat right. It's the effort to exercise to keep yourself happy. It's the effort to educate yourself. Then it's the effort to financially educate yourself. It's the effort to store your assets properly. Because it kind of links back to the Quadriga one. If you're kind of going, I like Bitcoin, but I can't be arsed taking the time, I'll leave it on the exchange. Then you just go Quadriga. or you go gold 1945 or whenever it happened. Yeah. You know, the equivalent of banks, I'll just go back to ours now. Whereas at this point, I'd say a good proportion of Bitcoin is stored in cold storage. And so if you got, well, we want your Bitcoin, I lost it.
Yeah. It's just all my main message really is, like, Bitcoin's easy enough to understand now. Like, don't wait. Like, I think it's going to get easier, but don't use this as an excuse. It is not difficult now. Anyone can get it right now. So just get in, and take control of your keys. It isn't difficult. Take control of your keys, get a hardware wallet, back it up on 24 words on metal.
Yeah, funnily enough, I had a conversation with someone the other week. They were talking about the setup of the wallet and in relation to Quadriga, because they're talking to me about that, someone in work. And I said, well, you know, about the seed words, how do you store them? I've got them written down somewhere safe. I'm like, we don't got them on metal. What happens if you've got a flood, fire, mold, the paper decays, whatever? Oh, I haven't thought about that. I'm like, you put it in metal storage. So I sent him some links. And then I had to explain to him what the passphrases do. So pretty much your hardware wallet, so your ledger and your 8-digit code is your key. You can access it, whereas the 24 words is your backup. If you have a problem with that ledger, you need to make sure there's a backup. So it's 24 words is you put that into any other ledger, bump, there's your Bitcoin, it appears.
Yeah. So many people just don't understand that.
Yeah. But it's putting everything simple. And I think it has been kind of, because it's been, you know, with the plebs and the nerds of the internet, and it is becoming more and more mainstream now.
Yeah.
You know, simple as none of us were in early days. You were probably a stage earlier than both of us, but by the time which it came to us, it was easier to understand. There was literature. There were ways to store your Bitcoin securely. So it was a lot easier.
Sweet. Yeah. Should we move on from the conference for
Let's go from the conference.
Are we going to go for a bit of
leave
FUD?
the conference.
So I think we talked about. No, actually, we had it on last week's agenda, didn't we, about Chris Larson? But we had to move it out because we had so many articles. So it's probably one to talk about. So in the show notes, we're going to have a link through to an article about change the code, not the climate, something which is quite catchy. But there's also a nice little video which we're going to share as well, which goes through some of the facts, which just takes this apart. So this is one which Mr. Orlin put in. So it's been doing the rounds on Twitter, hasn't it, the last couple of weeks? And it's just nonsense. He's the creator of XRP, isn't he? Ripple.
Yeah, Ripple, yeah, Mr. Ripple, yeah.
So this is something which is being investigated as security since it's centralized. It's basically just him selling tokens. But now he seems to be going, if we made Bitcoin, change the code, then we could actually save it. So pretty much he wants Ripple to be the main thing, is what I take from this.
Yeah. This is my go-to article now. Every time someone says Bitcoin uses too much energy, just reference this article. So straight away, he just goes, fact number one, right, which you might have heard, because basically what he did is he paid Greenpeace $5 million to shit on Bitcoin. So what did Greenpeace do? They released a video shitting on Bitcoin. So what this article does is just break down the key facts. And I say facts in quotations because there's only 4 facts in the Greenpeace video. They were all wrong. They were all just bollocks, basically. So first off, they say that Bitcoin uses 70 to 120 terawatts a year of energy, and Sweden uses 130 terawatts. So therefore, Sweden and Bitcoin are comparable. Using that as a comparison, you go, holy shit, is Bitcoin worth more than Sweden? But then they just compare it to something else. They go, the US tumble dryers use 93 terawatts per year.
Is it just US or is it global?
Only the US.
Yeah.
Only the US.
Ooh.
And that is right in the middle of the estimation of what Bitcoin uses. So Bitcoin now, instead of being compared to Sweden as an entire country, you're comparing us to tumble dryers in the United States. Is there a war on tumble dryers in the United States?
What you're saying is we need to destroy all tumble dryers.
Get rid of
Exactly.
them. Well, no, just say to the US, you are no longer allowed to use tumble dryers, and the rest of the world can crack on, because that will eliminate all of the energy consumption.
Yeah, because if you get rid of all the US tumble dryers, it's the same as getting rid of Bitcoin. So it's just, and then he goes on again. It's like fact number 2. It's a massive case of classic modeling, which is, oh, Bitcoin will potentially heat the planet by 2 degrees. They say it's a fact. It's clearly not a fact. It's a could, and completely dismisses the fact that Bitcoin doesn't use energy the same way as other industries do. It's largely from renewables, because that renewables are the cheapest form of energy. We don't want to use oil or gas because they're expensive. So it's just silly. It's a classic model, which obviously over the last 2 years, I think we've all learned that models are completely nonsense. But
what are you trying to say about Neil Ferguson?
So he must have a real hot missus because he broke lockdown for her.
No, that's someone else's missus, wasn't it?
No, that's Fergie. Fergie did that. But yeah, so basically it goes through, and then again, the last point, it kind of references that Bitcoin actually, if you're going to compare Bitcoin as an energy consumption to a country, it is actually the most green country there is, because of renewables, it uses a very high percentage of renewables. It's hard to really know, but it's between 60 and 70% of Bitcoin energy come through the renewables, because Bitcoin miners go to where the energy is cheapest, and that is away from city centers. It's away from large towns. They go right up next to the big hydro dams, the big wind farms, the solar farms.
But then the argument, the bit of FUD which they're trying to use is, but they're using all that renewable energy that could go elsewhere.
But it can't, because a lot of it is completely wasted because it's too far away from civilization. So they just let it out into the atmosphere. because there's a load of Bitcoin miners using natural gas in America, which literally they set fire to the natural gas in the air. Literally, it comes out the ground, they set fire to it because it can't go anywhere. It's too far away from civilization, and the demand is met. The demand is needed elsewhere, but they can't get the gas there. So they set fire to it. So Bitcoin miners have gone to those places where they're setting fire to natural gas and gone, stop setting fire to it. We will buy it off you, transfer it through this. We will build a mining farm here, transfer the energy into us. So essentially, as Bitcoin mining energy grows, we are moving to areas that didn't use the energy before. We're not taking up existing energy. Energy that was wasted before is being used by and large, because that is the most profitable way to mine Bitcoin. If anyone sets up a massive mining farm in the center of London or Paris or New York, guess what? You're going to make fuck all money because the energy is far too expensive. You have to be in the arse end of nowhere using energy that is renewable. Otherwise, you won't make money. And that's what people are doing. Bitcoin is green. Fuck off.
We in the video which we're sharing as well, it was saying, was it Bitcoin takes up 0.1% of the world's energy a year. And then the second stat, which I love, is 2/3 of energy as an estimate is wasted. So this is where it's got nowhere to go because there's not enough demand, and it's gone far away, so they can't store it. So from my understanding, like, I'm not an expert around energy and how to store it, but it's got to be stored nearby to where it's generated. So there's a prime example of this in Canada with a friend of the show, Trudeau, with one of his hydro dams where it's pretty much useless. They spent billions of Canadian dollars on a hydro dam which can't work because it's too far away from anything. And these are the kind of things which Bitcoin uses, you know, like Mr. Allin said. So volcanoes, hydro dams, solar, gas flares, whatever they can, which is cheap, which is seen as waste, and it's not going anywhere.
What I also like about the article is the other comparisons as well in terms of like the carbon emissions. So Bitcoin is actually the lowest on the carbon emissions in comparison to other industries, 41,000. And then you've got like the gold industry at 3 times that, at 122, and so forth and so on. You know, but ultimately the aviation industry is the largest at 1,982. You know, it's a great article to bookmark, and anybody that wants to throw out that Bitcoin is boiling the ocean, just send them over to suresats.com and
I'd love to see that aviation industry broken into chartered planes, private jets. Because that's one of my bugbears is we're being told or lectured by people at the moment, you've got to stop wasting energy because you're causing loads of pollution whilst they're flying around on their private jets and being on their super yachts. And I'd love to see what percentage of that total emissions is. So I reckon it's probably very, very high. So I think I saw a stat around a yacht that in order to fill up a yacht for a week, an average person won't go through that amount of petrol in their car in a year.
And it's very funny and ironic that you talk about a yacht as well, because that's the second highest at 1,500. So marine transport sector.
And I have the killer stat that destroys every ESG argument in the water. Every single one. So the top 100 corporations are responsible for 71% of the emissions. So if you gave a shit.
Well, that's because you're buying the plastic from China.
I agree. A lot of that is that. So if you want to improve the climate, there's 100 organizations that are responsible for 3/4 of climate change. Who should be re-regulating? Who should you be going to force change on? There's 100 CEOs. You could just go and give massive financial incentives to change everything. There you go, done.
Well, it's
overnight.
Also back to my favorite bugbear of super yachts and private jets. If they really cared about it, they'd make them illegal.
And also,
unless there's X amount of people on these planes, you can't use it.
Yeah, or come on, you'd either regulate these 100 companies or you'd move to nuclear. Like, this whole climate change thing is a complete red herring. It's another WWE. They just want to. It rings well with the population. Unfortunately, people think that because there's a fire somewhere or a flood somewhere, they put the word climate change on it and they fucking believe it.
Or it's because it was slightly warm in September and October.
Exactly. Like, there's fires and floods fucking every year, you dickheads. There's nothing to do with climate change. Grow up.
But there's more in California. Do you know what they stopped doing? Cutting down all the trees, which originally the natives cut down to stop the forest fires.
Oh, I know.
Anyway,
climate change was a horrible rabbit hole that I climbed down and realized it's such a fucking scam. And I just went, oh my God, it enraged me.
You are quite grouchy tonight, aren't you?
Yeah. I've just had enough of this shit at this point.
Right. We didn't actually. I was just looking through these articles as well, and the big one, or did we cover it last week in terms of Elon Musk, Adam Back, and Jack Dorsey all trying to pull together, and then obviously talk about how we can use the renewable energy in a productive manner.
Yeah. So it just follows on perfectly, really, doesn't it, from what we just discussed? Really, this is three of fair play, three of the brightest minds. We got Elon, Jack, and Adam Back, and it's just another example, right? This is just in case everyone thought we were full of shit on the first kind of story. This is them going, there's a load of solar power that is being used, or at least being captured. But the biggest problem humans have is batteries. We can't store the energy that we capture. Our battery technology is shit right now. So the sun kind of rays down so much energy, but it just gets lost into the earth. And even if we capture it in solar panels, we can't store it for very long. Our batteries are very bad. They run out of energy. They can't store very much. So near the solar panel farms, which obviously Elon has a huge amount of, he owns Solar City. He runs Tesla off these solar panel farms. The Bitcoin guys have gone, we know there's a shit ton of energy that you can't store in your batteries and you're undoubtedly just wasting. Why don't we plug a Bitcoin farm onto the side of it? So that's what they've gone and done. It's what they're planning on doing. Perfect use. And the problem is, all this energy that they end up using will get counted against Bitcoin, as in we are now stealing it from children in Africa. It's like, no, this energy was just going to get released into the atmosphere in Texas. Instead of it getting released, Bitcoin is capturing it and using it to secure a new global financial layer that serves the entire world, a global currency. We have taken
sounds like you hate children in Africa.
What did you say?
What have we ever done to you?
Oh man,
just let them live, man. Let the kids live. Let them breathe.
I just want to go home today.
Just let the kids breathe. But yeah, I love them. Yeah, basically Elon, Jack, and Adam Back. That's the great trinity. And I just can't see how they can lose, three powerhouses of brains, and also just real desire to want to change the world. We've seen what Elon's done. We've seen how Jack has moved from Twitter, then, decided to change the name Square to Block. Surprise, surprise, all focused on Bitcoin. And then Adam Back being an OG in the game since the incessant.
Yeah. By the way, Jack, he was talking about Bitcoin and inflation today, and someone said, "Oh, you're into crypto or something?" And he went, "I hate crypto. Got no interest in it." And that tweet I don't think I put it in the notes. No, I didn't. I was close to doing it. It got thousands of tweets with people quote tweeting Jack talking about Bitcoin. Okay, what do you mean you're not into crypto? Here's you talking about Bitcoin. And under every single tweet, Bitcoin is going, crypto's not Bitcoin. Read some more and you understand. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful just watching the penny drop around all these no coiners try and think that they've caught Jack out in a lie, going, oh no, look, you're not into crypto. You mentioned Bitcoin here, here, and here. It's in your bio. And they're like thinking that he's forgotten he's into Bitcoin. It's like, nah, dude, he's just not into crypto. He's not, which really what he means is Bitcoin, not shitcoin.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I was talking to Everyman today about this, and he's, raised a good point. And he was just saying, what people don't get is they're thinking, oh, I'm getting into Ethereum or whatever, but it's just gambling. What are the principles of that cryptocurrency? What is it going to bring above and beyond fiat? So if it, start with Ethereum, it's a centralized people. Tick, it's like the Bank of England or the Fed, exactly the same. It's controlled by a set amount of people. They can do what they want. How many coins are there? We're not really sure. Is it inflationary? Yes. Oh, we're doing a little bit of deflationary, but not really. And that's literally it. It's Bitcoin. You've got your sound economics. You've got shit coins, your gambling. So you're hoping that it's going to 10x or 100x.
Yeah. And ultimately, as soon as I learned and found out that, the founders of Ethereum held 70% and pre-mined it, and then you understand that when Satoshi launched the white paper without actually having done anything and hadn't pre-mined any Bitcoin as well, anybody could have stole the idea. They could have begun getting on it before it had actually begun as well. It's just like you had your chance there to actually disprove this, or go back to what humans normally do and ride with greed as well. Didn't happen.
It's for the better of people, isn't it? That's what Bitcoiners believe. It's not so much a get rich scheme. It is this or what will sort out a lot of issues.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like we always say, you come for the gains and you stay for the revolution. That's Bitcoin, right? We're not here. This is not a stock pick. This is not a random shit coin that you can 10x your fiat gains. It's how we started the podcast with, which is, oh, but you're going to need an exchange to sell your Bitcoin into fiat. Well, the whole point of Bitcoin is that you won't ever need to sell it. Bitcoin will become the global currency of the globe. That is why we are here. And that is such a huge goal. And the kind of changes and improvements on the globe that could happen if that was to occur are so huge. And millions of people will genuinely save lives, because you won't be able to fund wars with fiat money. You won't be able to bankrupt banks with fiat money.
You won't be able to send people into poverty by inflating money. Exactly. When it is, I don't know, a carrot costs a sat or whatever, a carrot will cost a sat unless there's some production problems. If a steak costs 5 sats, it will cost it unless there's production problems. There'll be the cost of making whatever it is, rather than going, we're going to create 20% more Bitcoin this year. So Therefore, the market will decide what the salary is for someone needs to survive doing that job.
Yeah. And that's why we're here. And we're not in here for quick gains. Like, look, the gains are good, but we want the revolution. And the next 2 stories, we've got Inflation Weekly on here, and it really hits it home. This is big stuff now. So we've mentioned Martin Lewis a few times on this podcast before, and every time I've seen Martin Lewis before, he's always been shilling like various, sign up for this voucher, get 10% off here, stop spending there, and you can save money on this. Like, this is the way to run a family household. Like, stop wasting money, really. That has always been his message when I've been growing up. And I've always kind of ignored him because, I don't know, I kind of got it anyway. And I always thought it was a bit patronizing. But I came across this article, and I think it just got highlighted from Bitcoin Twitter anyway to me. because he's essentially going, there's no more saving.
Right.
Like people can't afford food. They're going to get angry, and civil unrest isn't far away. And he basically says, for people towards the bottom end, there's nothing to cut back on. It's not an exaggeration to say that there are people that we have to prevent from freezing or starving. And this is from Martin Lewis. He's basically admitting defeat, going, this is not about the people anymore. The people are not wasting money. They're not spending it on frivolous items. Inflation is going to cause starvation and the freezing of individuals during the winter. This is crazy.
But the simple fact is this was predictable. I think we talked about this 2 years ago during the initial lockdowns. We're printing money out of thin air. We're doing things like furlough schemes, stopping businesses. It meant that lots of money was going to have to be printed, and that money in turn would make you poorer because there's more money in the system. So it'd be people die through not being treated because no one was allowed in through hospital. Tick, we've seen that. Mental health suicide, tick, we've seen that. Inflation for pricing food and energy, we've seen that, and we're still not at the end. So we're currently seeing year 1 of lockdowns. We're yet to see year 2 of lockdowns. So if you think that the 7.9%, which the Bank of England's claiming, which is more like 20%, is as bad as it's going to get, you're going to for a real shock next year. Over the next 12 months, it's going to get much worse.
It's pretty nuts, right? When the guy that always says that you can save a few dollars or a few pounds here, he's basically going, nah, literally his only appeal in this article is to the government to go, you got to let him off on something. Like, give him some money. He's out of options. And
he's going into printing money, so it's going to make the problem bigger.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Knows how to save cannot save anymore.
Yeah, like this is like you said at the beginning of what you just answered there. It's what we've been predicting the entire time. It is not about the poor or the immigrants saving money. This is more about the government and the elite from printing money. They need to fucking stop, because the price of everything will continue to go up, and whoever's at the bottom gets washed out first. And that's what we're seeing.
But we've said it many times, it is a cyclical problem. Like, literally, it's a drug addict. In order to stimulate the economy, use the fingers again, we need to print more money, because it is a beast. If you don't print it, the economy doesn't grow, it implodes, it shrinks. So literally, you print more and more and more. So they're stuck in this endless cycle until we actually go, we need to go to a gold standard, a Bitcoin standard, anything with some stability, which puts controls on lazy governments, because that's ultimately what the issue is. Like, you look at the NHS, how much of the NHS actually goes to patient care? It's probably 20%, isn't it? It's probably 80% waste, because the government can do that, but it's getting worse and worse and worse because there's no repercussions. Oh yeah, we'll just expand your budget by 20% next year because we've made 20% more revenue available to our government, and we keep on doing it. It's going to get worse. Cycle. Yeah, exactly. But I felt like Martin Lewis, he kind of, I don't know if he fully understood it or he just pussied out of a few things. So his option was printing money, and he talked about, what was it? I gave him, oh here we go. So they would love to see him in number 11. Lewis has mixed views on the Chancellor. I gave him an A for the furlough scheme. The furlough scheme was obvious what it would cause, wouldn't it? It was obvious.
Super obvious. We already knew that, yeah, great, you're helping people right now at this very moment in time, but it's going to come back and bite you in the ass, but not you, as in Boris Johnson and the elites.
Yeah, I gave it a U. I didn't give it.
It was a trial socialism. That's all it was. Because so Nebula, you sent round an article that was like a genuine protest to this, or was it like some energy thing? 10 p.m.
Yeah. So turn off your energy and cut all your energy supply. It was on Sunday night at 10 o'clock for 10 minutes. Yeah,
and that's supposed to teach the energy suppliers a lesson somehow, because And this is a total nonsense, right? It's like what Martin Lewis is trying to do here. It's attacking the wrong people. It's
Correct.
Don't attack the energy companies to a certain extent. They probably are profiteering off it to a certain extent, but really they're just going up with inflation, and inflation's gone up by 20-30%. So guess what? They pass down the cost to you.
They're making record profits, but if you look at the profits as a percentage of their income and expenses, it's probably the same, isn't it? They're still making a 10% margin.
I'd imagine they are profiteering. It's like with the pharmaceutical industries over the last 2 years. They've gone, oh no, we did all the vaccines and the masks and the tests, all it cost. And you go, well, why have you got record profits?
Yeah.
But the record profits, are they record percentage profits or monetary profits?
Yeah, they are, yeah.
Because if they're percentage and they're the same, then it's just the fact that they're meant to make 10%. But if it's percentage, then obviously they're profiteering.
Yeah.
Another thing which he said, which, I like the article, but I read a few things and just went, you either don't get it or you are holding back. So it sounds like a party political intervention. He insists it's not. I think a Labour government probably would give more because it's a different philosophy. So a Labour government would print more money. So instead of that 20% in year one, followed by, another 20% in year two, they would have printed 35% on those years, and you'd be even poorer. And they'd be saying, oh, these companies must pay you more. But we printed 70% of the monetary system in the last 2 years. And, the problem comes back to the government. So like my final point, because I feel like I'm turning into Mr. All In tonight. Like, you know how much I love inflation.
This is always your favorite topic. Like, we need to get this out the way
This
early.
is where he gets the biggest boner on the Inflation Weekly. He's like, yes, we're here now. We're here.
Half an hour.
Yeah.
That Inflation Weekly.
But last point around this is, but what can we do? How could they predict this was going to happen? It's happened countless times before. So we've seen it. You could classify the same as the rice stones. So the rice stones, they went to an island. They want to trade with the islanders. What do the island want? Rice stones. So they started mining it, shipping it in, and that's a form of inflation. But it was some explorers who abused it. The same with seashells and glass beads. And then if you look at actual currency, we've seen it in China. I don't know which dynasty. I'll say Ming, but I'm probably wrong. In that they went from, I think, a silver standard, then paper notes backed by silver. Then we went to pure fiat standard. And that's when the whole dynasty fell down, because China was a global powerhouse at that point. And then you've got Rome, once again, Rome powerhouse. They had, was it the denarius, which was a gold coin with some other metal in it. And it's basically the weight of the gold. And then they did coin clipping. So clip, 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 until it became copper with a glaze of gold across the top. And by the end, their soldiers didn't want to work for them because money was worth so little. So once again, inflation. So how do we know that this was going to happen? It's happened countless times before. And the government do it because they inflate their assets and still live the same standard which they want to, or rather them and their parasite friends, whereas everyone else gets poorer and poorer, but they don't give a shit. And that's rant over.
Fucking hell, I didn't want your life story, bro.
Shut up and learn something.
That was a good rant. 10 out of 10 rant. I like it.
Yeah, definitely. I'd also like to just quickly weave in, because Dr. Evil 10% and I are still on about this, as our book so far for 2022 is Ray Dalio's New World Order, New Changing World Order, is that the fact that he mentions civil unrest isn't far away. Now, when civil unrest happens, it usually creates a revolution and big things will change. Now, I don't know if people are there yet, because
I'd say in America they're a lot closer than the UK.
Yeah, definitely so. But because when I'm going around, I'm looking at people shopping like there's no tomorrow. The people are just going on like it's all good, and it is coming and it is going to hit them so hard. So when he says civil unrest isn't far away, I don't see that. but I eventually see that civil unrest will definitely increase.
Well, talking about the spending, I was having a look at holidays this week, planning a year in advance.
Yeah.
And the kind of prices which I got returned were through the roof. And I was like, I'm not paying that. How's the average person paying for that?
Yeah.
And it's the same with the cars, Range Rovers, BMWs, Mercedes, everywhere.
Yeah.
And as we've always said, it's like societies, civilizations, they don't go on a gradual death. They go from complete extravagance, laziness, virtually zero output. And they're right at the top whilst they're doing that. And then they fall to zero very, very quickly, in like a decade's time. And it just feels completely natural that is where we are right now. When you look at the US, what do? They don't produce anything. China produce everything. Where's energy come from? It comes from Russia. They don't do anything other than having Facebook and Twitter, like based in them. Like they don't do anything, and they are full of wokeness. They don't know what genders they are. They don't know what like people they are. They're infighting white, blacks, men, women. They're infighting. They don't know what sexuality they are. They don't know anything. They're fascinated by basic stuff that doesn't matter.
Well, funnily enough, it's the same in the Roman Empire.
Well,
they said that when
exactly
the empires have fallen, right at the end, they've come up with these facts and they've become obsessed with something which is not a core problem. Like a core problem is feeding your family, making sure your kids have a good upbringing, but they're more obsessed with Facebook, Instagram, having a good selfie and God knows what else, appearing virtuous.
Yeah.
And guess what?
Problems.
And guess what countries are worried about that kind of shit? El Salvador, Honduras, Portugal, Mexico. They give a shit about feeding your family, looking after your family, generational wealth. America, UK, most of Europe, they care about what gender you are and listing your pronouns on LinkedIn. Guess what? You're probably going to have fun staying poor for the next 500 years.
I'd like to continue Dr. Evil 10% boner with regards to the next article in the agenda. You may not have seen it because I only added it onto the agenda this afternoon.
I had a quick look just before when we were chatting about something. So cool calculation. Love these kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's being brought to us by the Telegraph. So shout out to the Telegraph on this one. So, so what I did is looked at the average salary of a UK worker is £31,285.
What's it for a full-time worker? Because I think that's including part-time workers. I think it's 40 grand for the average full-time worker.
Okay, well let's use the 40k.
Yeah, you can use either because it's a good comparison.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, I've got the numbers just quickly set out. 31,285. If that was the date of the last pay rise, or in January 2021 as their last pay rise,
so a year,
and so in a year's time, they have lost. Now, the sum is £1,943 that they have lost.
But that's using the official inflation figure. Is that
correct?
Or is it using the expenses which we're seeing?
This is using the official figure that's given from them, as opposed to what is really the real figure.
So realistically, it's around about 20%. So put 20% against 31,000, and that is more like 6,000.
6,000, yeah, 6,200. So
whereas they're saying it's more like whereas they're saying it's 2,000. I don't think so.
Correct. So also on the flip side of it is that you need to go to your boss, your line manager, whoever it is, if you want to keep up with inflation. And if they're not a company that is like a BlackRock that gives 8% pay rises to their staff out of nowhere. I think that we
was it in America where the senators or governors or something award themselves a pay rise of 20% which kind of matched the suspected figure of inflation.
Yeah, that was one of our inflation weeklies.
Yeah. So, you look at what they're doing, and what they're doing is covering their own backs for inflation.
Absolutely. But yeah, just to point that out, so you'd have to ask your boss for 2K extra every year if they're not giving it to you every year, just to keep up with inflation. And so what I'd do is urge anybody that's listening to take a look through the show notes, click on the link in terms of calculated pay rise, salary, inflation, cost of living, put in your salary, and see where you need to be for the next 5 years, because it's pretty astonishing. Because the year that you don't get a pay rise, or if you're on a fixed income and therefore you have no means to be able to increase your wealth, you will be losing money. So just to finish this off, the person that starts off on the UK average wage, if we're again using the £31,285, in 5 years, if they get no pay rise whatsoever, and we all know people that work in roles where the business has not given them a pay rise whatsoever, that person loses close to 6k, it's £5,936 in the year 2027, and their purchasing power will go down. And obviously prices will continue to increase, and it's going to become harder and harder for them to keep up. So
kind of going into this chart, I know I love the fact that it's a calculator, but you look at the figures which are using. So it's 5.8%. We know that's nowhere close.
It's nowhere close.
8.1% for next year. So once again, we triple these figures. So 15% and 24% is what we're going to expect, rather than these figures. Then it's telling us 1.2, 1.7, 2, and 2. So it's using the CPI figures which they've been feeding us. But as we've discussed, when you're feeding the beast, and the beast is getting hungrier and hungrier, it demands more. It is not going to settle for 1.2% and 2%. No, it's going to be, we're seeing double-digit inflation right now, though they're not admitting we are. So the fact is, if we did against, say, the 8.1, we're probably going to be seeing a minimum of 5 anyway. It's not going to go down.
Yeah. I really don't know why they put in that 1.2 and 1.7, because it's just not realistic. I don't believe that there's been a year where it's just been under the 2% realistically, whilst they may have said that it's just around about 2 to 3%.
Well, if you look at the chart, inflation's come back. It's showing in 2020, it's claiming it was under 1%. In around about 2015, it's claiming it's close to 0%. So there's all these claims, but we know it's always around about 5% anyway.
Yeah.
Until they have a special year when they decide to print shitloads of money, 2008, 2020. And then in the 70s, we had many years, 80s, because they got really carried away and did it for 10 years, made everyone really poor.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Right, in this article, right, they have a diagram that shows inflation rate, and it seems to start from 1971. And if anyone that listens to this fucking podcast doesn't understand what happened in 1971, then just switch off now, and I don't want to know who you are.
There's a website. It's called WTF Happened in 1971. Go to it. If you like graphs, this will blow your fucking mind. If it doesn't blow your mind, go back to your hole.
It's always funny. They start their graphs in 1971 and then show inflation going down like that since that date. Like, dude, that's when you started printing money and lying about inflation.
Well, it's when you
like, fuck's sake, dude.
It's when we went off a gold standard at all. So before 1971, through to the end of First World War, we weren't on a true gold standard. They were still printing, but it was out of sync. But they're still trying to taper it off. So we kind of stuck roughly to gold. We were increasing away from it. And then in 71, we went, fuck it, we can't do this anymore, and just cut it completely. Yeah. So it was kind of like a little bit of a guide rope, but we were so far removed from 1918 through to 1971. It was unbelievable because they were doing it anyway.
Yeah, well, America, they were the last ones to cut, yeah.
And that's why you can't have like, like a currency backed by metal, because the governments will do it again.
Yeah,
and that's why you need an asset. Like, I love the idea of a gold standard, but you put a gold standard in place, within 50 years, they're back to doing it because they can't control themselves. They're promising policies which they can't pay for. And also they want to enrich them and their friends. Whereas if you go for Bitcoin, everyone uses every single transaction in Bitcoin. How are you going to inflate it? You can't. And you are stuck based upon the GDP of your country.
Yeah, the key stat that I took from the Bitcoin standard was every 15 years, the value of your fiat wealth halves. So the way to translate that into your real life world is if you're not doubling your salary every 15 years, then you're losing money. You're only breaking even. So if you get paid 25 grand a year today, in 15 years time, you have to be paid 50 grand a year just to be the same as you are today. If you're paid 49 grand, not 50, you're getting paid less than you are today because inflation will beat you. And that is based on around the 5% inflation rate that is reported. And as we know, it is massively escalated in the last couple of years. So that's probably the only thing I'd leave people with, really. If it's hard to understand and hard to put stuff in,
and if you're beating it, it's probably because you're probably near the beginning of your career, where you're actually seeing increases in your salary year on year. But once, I suppose, you hit your kind of Peter principle, the level which you're at, you're just not going to see it.
Yeah, and it's horrendous as well, because we were talking about this before we entered on the pod, which is you can try and beat inflation, and sometimes you can, but in reality, even by beating inflation, what that really means is you end up not spending as much on investments, not as much on enjoying your life, because you have to spend it on living instead, which that is still theft. It's theft of your life, theft of your time. So even though you've budgeted to not be right up to the line on inflation, and because your bills go up by 5 or 10%, it doesn't put you underwater. You can still absorb it. That doesn't mean it's okay. That 5 or 10% of extra money that you're now spending out, if you're going to save that, put it into investments, spend it on the children, spend it on a holiday, they're stealing this from you. It is not okay. Just because you can afford it, just because you budgeted for it, does not mean this is okay. It's still theft, and it's still stealing.
Do you know what response I'm getting from the boomers at the moment?
What's the boomer saying?
It's hard in my lifetime.
It's just not. It's not anywhere near like it was in the 70s. Because that's when they came off the gold standard, boomer.
Wow.
Fuck me. Yeah. Anyway, come on. We're lagging today.
Yeah. Let's crack on through these. Yeah, let's crack on through these last three.
Russell Brand, CBDCs.
He's had some interesting videos lately, hasn't he? And you're kind of going, you're a bit mental, but you actually, when you listen to his content, you're going, there's nothing which is out of place here. Yeah. Is he a Bitcoiner yet?
No, he still admits that he's not completely sold, but he completely knows the state is completely corrupt. He completely gets it. So,
but what's he doing? Is he just so rich from what he's done previously, but he doesn't really work or something?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Because that's possibly why he doesn't get it, because he doesn't have the necessity to get it.
Yeah.
Just in a way, he literally just podcasts and rants and has pretty decent guests on as well in terms of his rants. But I don't think he's there yet.
So I've just seen him. He looks like he's in some kind of shed ranting about stuff. Yeah. And like, you kind of go, you listen to like his tone and everything, you think he's a bit mental. When you listen to what he's saying, you go, oh, he's actually stripped this right down and he's absolutely spot on. You cannot argue about what he's talking about.
he exposes that our whole. We did an entire episode on BlackRock and Vanguard, and in this one, he unleashes that CBDC is essentially going to be controlled by BlackRock and Vanguard, and he releases a great stat. It was a stat that we didn't manage to produce, which was that BlackRock and Vanguard, if you put them together, they can buy the entire stock market 3 times over.
It's a London stock exchange, wasn't it?
Yeah, which is pretty much like everything. But like that just shows you the power when 2 companies can buy everyone like once, then again. Like that, they are more powerful than the US government, more powerful than the Russian government, more powerful than the Chinese government. And who regulates these guys? No one. They are individual.
I'm sure there's some kind of claim that they are regulated
from the WEF, the IMF, the WHO.
But
they
it
all
does
wear robes. They all get together. They fuck kids. I mean, allegedly.
allegedly. That's the end of the podcast of the 4Bs. Thanks for listening. That's us cancelled.
But it is a good point. Like people who are that rich that they can, buy countries, they output more than countries. It isn't a good place to be, and this is what a fiat system creates: is that you can leverage debt in order to build more assets and basically become the powerhouse. And that's what they've done. They got controlling stakes in a lot of companies, so they dictate. I think what we talked about, what the media does, what different companies do, so investment strategies. And here, they're basically, Russell Brand's talking about CBDCs and how they want them. So the kind of question is, okay, you want CBDCs, why? It's a lock-in. It locks you in to a central currency. And I think the way which he's talking about it is a kind of world currency, so a giant euro. So everyone has this central currency which they've got to use, and you're a slave. It's fundamentally what it is.
I mean, obviously we're all aware of Apple and how big they are as a company. Who do you think has the major stock ownership of Apple?
What? I was going to say BlackRock have got at least 10% because they always have 10% of everything.
Yep, BlackRock and Vanguard.
Yeah.
We went through it, didn't we? We had 2 hours on going through every top 500 company, the number 2 shareholders, BlackRock and Vanguard, and every single one.
Yeah.
If you ever want to find, the underbelly and the root kind of participation of a criminal network, is follow the money. Yeah. And the bizarre thing, this is the one thing that I didn't get about our Follow the Money episode, was why do BlackRock and Vanguard make it so obvious? Like they are literally listed right fucking there on every single S&P 500 company. The number 1 and 2 shareholders are always them. Like, at least hide yourselves, but they're just there in plain sight. And so when Russell starts talking about CBDCs and how they are going to be the future, he exposes the fact that all it really means is they will be owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, therefore the governments. But then they, I think he has a great couple of quotes in there where he says the WF and the IMF, they are completely impartial, yet they are funded by governments and represent governments, but they're impartial. You're clearly
probably right. I'm probably
and represent governments. Come on.
So he talked about a bit about Bitcoin. So he talked about people deride it. So the thing is, it's useless. It's a Ponzi scheme. And then they're trying to regulate it and control it. And the ultimate control is the CBDC. No, you can't use your money to buy that. That's the end goal, which is, absolutely terrifying. Oh, sorry, you can't have steak today because you didn't vote for the right party in the government. It's meant to be a democracy, but you didn't vote for the right one.
Exactly.
Should we move on to shitcoin corner?
Yep.
Oh, final point on that one.
Go on.
BlackRock is it Illumini? Sorry, I've forgotten how to say the word.
Illuminati.
They sit. So several of former BlackRock alumni sit in Biden's administration.
Of course I do.
But my question to you is, does Joe Biden
alumni. Yeah.
Does Joe Biden know who BlackRock are?
It'd be like, BlackRock did not do any prostitution, inflation.
Like the tobacco industry.
Exactly.
Come on, man.
At this point, it's literally asking your dementia nan, like, come on. Like,
yeah, that clip which I shared, I think it was last night, was just like, my word, this is just unbelievable.
Yeah, anyone that believes that guy is running any country,
someone who I know who's American who lives in the UK, he's saying that it's down to his stutter, and I went, like, I'm not going to argue with him because he is a Democrat. He's still.
Oh man, send him like this 15 clips of Biden.
He's a big politics fan, but like, I just looked at him. I was just like, I don't believe you.
Now, please add him to our group and let me destroy that guy.
And then I saw this clip and I just went, there's no answer to this. That's not a stutter. That's someone who just doesn't know where he is.
I'll make that guy delete all his Twitter accounts in 15 minutes of having access to him. So anyway, shitcoin corner. So this is
an interesting one.
It is, yeah. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So ultimately, somebody who we don't know, somebody is out there buying up shitcoins the day before Coinbase announced they're listing them. So let's think about this. Coinbase, once upon a time, just obviously used to list Bitcoin and then obviously Ethereum and so forth. And as an exchange that's IPO'd, it's got various different things that it needs to adhere to in terms of the coins that are listed on its exchange. And that's probably one of course, one of the reasons why there are other exchanges that you can get and buy more shit coins on. But nevertheless, Coinbase still will take your money as an exchange. But they found an Ether address that has bought hundreds of thousands of dollars of tokens exclusively featured in the Coinbase asset listing post about 24 hours before it's actually published. So is there someone on the inside at Coinbase that is obviously very wealthy or is being tipped off?
Do they have to announce these kind of things to the US government?
No, but the problem is Coinbase used to have a real big problem with when something went live. Obviously, their internal staff would know.
Yeah.
So insider trading was a big problem. So what they decided to do, without regulation, which going back to the beginning of the pod, regulation doesn't solve this, but Coinbase decided to go, look, as a business, if we're going to even look at a shitcoin, we'll announce we're looking at it. So if in 3 months' time we end up launching it, then everyone knew. Yeah. But the problem is someone's even got before the announcement. So there's someone in Coinbase that even knows the discussion of the shitcoins going into the meeting. They buy shit tons of them. So if they get approved and then get announced, they've already got them. So they ride the pump. It's still classic insider trading, very clear.
So just out of coincidence, what do you before this happened, like Nancy Pelosi's returns was 69% average per year. What do you think it's now?
420.
Now that she's been found out and followed by everybody.
No, I'm saying it was her. Was it her? Was she the one who got in the shit coins? She's now out stocks and shares and doing shit coins now.
Oh wow!
Right. Well, can you see that? Like Kobe is the guy that tweeted this, and you've seen his attached tweet, right? It's Nancy Pelosi going like this.
Yeah. rubbing her.
She's like, I love a little bit of insider trading.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm guessing it's too obvious now. Someone's going to get done for this one. They're going to have to dig into it because they're too big. They're listed.
Yeah, exactly. They won't get caught because the problem is they've been too obvious with it. They've bought too large amounts of money, too many shit coins that no one else was buying. The second they go and deposit that, they're probably going to be stupid and deposit back on Coinbase, and they probably work there.
So imagine
they're probably in the meeting. They're probably a director of Coinbase doing the.
It's going to be above that kind of like level of anyone who actually knows, and so literally probably every single Coinbase employee now, all their bank accounts are monitored.
Yeah, and like you said, it's probably going to be one of the like top 50 execs at Coinbase. It's one of them. Very, very clearly one of them. So they now...
Or leaking to a friend, passing the money to them, kind of insulate themselves a little bit away from it. But of course, the friends
that would be clever.
It from... Yeah.
If they did that, it'd be clever. But I would guess they've already fucked up.
Speaking.
Well, yeah, they'll be able to trace back the original stuff, but I imagine whoever's got it now, like they sold it and they probably can't take it off the exchange, like they're stuffed.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine they're already probably fired because they've probably... It's a lot of this was tracked through an Ethereum address because a lot of the shit coins come from an Ethereum address. So if you've ever bought or sold Ethereum on that address and it's been attached to a KYC account, then it's going to have your name and address on it. So now it's been publicized like this. It's all over Twitter. That account probably is, if Coinbase just look into their database and have a look at who owns that address, it's probably one of their directors. So he's fired. He's done. Insider trading.
It's a matter of time, isn't it?
But again, that always proves the number one use case for shitcoins. Number one, enriching the founders. Number two, insider trading. Number three, getting wrecked.
Right.
Final story of the week.
Not least, correct. Final story.
You guys read this one?
Yeah, I had a read of it because I saw like the pictures, I think last week.
It's a joke one, just so you know. Don't take it seriously.
Well, I was kind of like working out, trying what the hell's going on this one.
Basically, right, I'll explain it to you if you don't seem to be getting it. There's a massive Bitcoin bull that was put in Bitcoin 2022. Big mechanical bull. It was worth like 300 grand, weighed 3,000 pounds of fucking steel. However, it was meant to represent the Wall Street bull. And the Wall Street bull has massive fucking bollocks on it. And whenever you walk up to the Wall Street bull, everyone touches its balls. Its balls are lucky. And the Bitcoin bull at the Bitcoin 2022 conference, it had no bollocks. Everyone was like, where the fuck is the Bitcoin bull's bollocks? It's being castrated. And they went and got in touch with the creator of the Bitcoin bull and went, did you not create the bollocks? And you went, yeah, I fucking did. I created some massive mechanical balls for that bull. And for whatever reason, the Bitcoin conference decided to be super woke and went, we don't want it to be too masculine. We want it to also introduce women. We didn't want to make it have balls. We want it to be fucking transsexual, gender neutral fucking bollocks. So it didn't have bollocks. And we were left with a bull, which by definition, a bull is a fucking male with no bollocks. And there we are.
That's the woke society that we live in.
We castrated a mechanical bull. So
Dr. Evil 10% is stunned.
I know. Yeah. I like how you both read that article and both didn't actually get what it was because
no, I did read it, but I was like, you said it's a joke, and I was just like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah. But it is ridiculous, right?
Like, I thought you were saying that it was like an Onion article or something. I was looking at the URL, but going, it's Forbes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Forbes. Well, the thing is that you read the Forbes article, it's serious. Like they think this is a serious issue. It's not a serious issue. The fact that Bull had bollocks or not doesn't really matter. It's just out of all the things they could have written about, they wrote about this.
Yeah. Well,
we're destroying your entire financial market. We're taking away your money, we're taking away all your control, all your power, all your laws. But guess what? Our bull doesn't have bollocks because someone was woke in the marketing department for Bitcoin 2022. Ain't going to change shit, boys. We're still going to take everything you've worked for your entire fucking lives. See you later. Have fun staying poor.
It would have been good if they had the previous bull and the pictures side by side as well. But I got it.
Yeah, they've got numerous. There's tons of pictures of like the bull. I've got a good picture of a Bitcoiner holding up 2 Bitcoins next to the bulls, and I'll probably put that as today's thumbnail because I like that picture.
Yeah, let's clickbait them on YouTube.
Yeah, I think. Are we done for today? It's been a long one. It's meant to be a short one, but then we had Miami 2022, so and it's pod 50. So
and we had a couple, 50. And we had a few of your rants as well.
I know. Yeah. I had a few rants in there.
It was needed.
My standard.
It was definitely needed. You know, this is a special occasion. Pod 50. You know, we're here.
We've got the big one. We've got the big one in 2 weeks' time.
52. That's the one.
Yeah, and we'll
full year.
We'll be making it special by no doubt talking about shitcoin, corner, FUD, and inflation weekly.
Key topics, which have served us right so far. Cool. Right. Well, I'm going to take us out by saying thanks once again to everybody that has come this far on the journey and listened all the way to the very end. You've been amazing. This is Pod 50, brought to you by Mr. Orlin, the $1 trillion man, Dr. Evil 10%, also known as the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and she was here, but she was never here, even 50 podcasts in. Mrs. No Show, still a no-show. Peace.